everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Abby. Today I'll be answering some questions that I found on Google that came up as kind of the most popular questions that are usually asked to a foreigner, and you'll also get a little bit of my unpopular and popular opinions in regards to these questions. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please do that down below, and if you already did, thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Okay, question number 1. Is food expensive in Japan? In my opinion, it depends on where you go. Recently, I just started trying to learn how to cook, so I would definitely recommend cooking your own meals and shopping at stores that have cheap goods like gyomu-supa and kohyo. If you have them in your area where you plan on moving to, I definitely recommend those grocery stores so that you can start cooking for yourself. Now, if you're thinking about going out to eat, then I would recommend going to mom and pop shops, kind of like the tiny little shops that you see that are kind of like hidden gems in little alleyways. And I know it sounds sketchy, but it's not really that sketchy. But those foods in those shops are usually very decently priced compared to the tourist trap restaurants that have a lot of English on the front of the store. Those places usually charge a lot more money. And when I say mom and pop shops, that means it's gonna be decked out in Japanese, entire Japanese menu. So you better get Google Translate on your phone because you're gonna need it. I like to use the little feature where you can turn on the camera and then it converts the Japanese in real time. That helps me out a lot. So it doesn't hurt to try and learn how to read hiragana and katakana before you come to Japan, because it really will help when you go out to eat. Are cars small? I was actually asked this on Facebook a couple of weeks ago. And surprisingly, no, not all the cars in Japan are small. There are some cars like mail trucks. Mail trucks are usually pretty small. I'll show you a picture right here. But this car is so common in the area where I live. This is the biggest van I've ever seen. And by looking at it, it looks like it can hold 12 people. I've ridden in one before, and yeah, it can actually fit 12 people. Not a lot of the cars in my area are small, and it's crazy because the alleyways and the streetways in the neighborhoods are so small and narrow. I don't see scrapes or scratches or dents or nothing on any of these cars. All the cars look super clean and super well kept. You couldn't put me in one of those cars. I can't imagine ever driving in Japan because my anxiety with these really narrow streetways, I couldn't do it. What is the transportation system like? It's really good, I think. Japan just needs less people using it on certain days, but I'll get into that later. The transportation system here in Japan is really good. It's always on time. So far, in my experience, it's always been on time. At least 98% of the time, because I remember there was one time that it was late by a couple of minutes, but after that, I've never experienced it again. Sometimes the transportation system seems a little bit too on time. I'll be trying to move from one train to get to another train to get to where I gotta be. The train, my second train is already leaving by the time I'm going down the stairs to get to it. Sometimes they're a little bit ahead of schedule. A word of advice: it really does matter what train car you get into. If you use Google Maps, because I always use Google Maps, sometimes Google Maps will give you a recommendation of what train car to get in for fastest exit. I would take its advice. And the only reason why I'm giving this advice is because on Mondays, there are so many students that are going home or going to other after-school activities or whatever, and there's so many of them. They walk so slow. They all line up horizontally, linking arms and on their phones and chit-chatting away, and you can just see all these business people trying to swerve through them, and they're literally running trying to get to their next train, and it's nearly impossible because the train station is so oversaturated with students. So ever since I ended up having to fall into all that craziness, I started getting on the train car that's closest to the stairs to get to my next train. It has definitely worked wonders. I don't have to run. I don't have to try and push my way through people just to get to my next train. It's a lot easier. How is Japan handling the pandemic? I would say they're handling it pretty well. I made a list of all the things that I've seen that Japan has done in regards to adjusting to the pandemic. So there are hand sanitizer stations in the front of grocery stores so that you can automatically get hand sanitizer. Sometimes it's not automatic, sometimes it's a pump, which doesn't make sense to me because everybody touches it, but whatever. There are plastic shields in front of the cashiers when they check out our stuff, so the customer and the cashier are divided by a plastic shield. Obviously, everybody's gotta wear masks. There are people spacers. I call them people spacers, but they're like the little tape lines on the floor that show you the measurement of how far away you gotta be from the other person. So a lot of stores and shops have that. Stores in the outlet malls do the forehead scan, but I've only ever seen it in the malls. I've never seen the forehead scan in stores like the dollar stores, the grocery stores, not in restaurants either. And then as for the vaccine, so far what I've heard is that they've mainly been giving them to the elders and the senior citizens. I haven't gotten mine, but yeah, that's all I know. We're still waiting for more supply to come in so that they can give it to the rest of the general public. One thing that I really like about the timing of when I came into Japan, it was before all of this pandemic stuff started happening. This is a weird thing to be happy about, but during the first week I actually caught a cold. I had to wear a mask just so that I didn't like pass it when I was on the train if I sneezed or anything. And so pretty much during my first month in Japan, I was already like getting myself used to wearing a mask. And then slowly all the craziness started happening. Masks are already normalized in Japan, so like I just had to keep wearing it and it wasn't really a problem. So masks don't really bother me all that much, luckily for me. What is the hardest thing about living in Japan as a foreigner? That's a loaded question. There's a lot that's hard and I could just complain all day. Personally, I would say the hardest part for me would be just my lack of being able to speak the language fluently. That's it. I can't really expand much more upon that. I know that when you're fluent in the language anywhere, you can talk to people. People make the world go round, and that's just how it works. So if you can talk to people, you're fine. If you can't talk to people, good luck. Is moving to Japan worth it? Absolutely. And the reason why I say that is just because traveling in general is definitely worth it, because you get away from where you grew up and everything you knew, and I know that sounds terrible for some of you guys. I just feel that moving to Japan has definitely opened my eyes to a lot more of how the world works and how people are so different yet so similar to people that I knew back in the United States. Yeah, anyone that ever wants to move out to Japan, I definitely encourage you to, but also bring some Japanese with you. What are Japanese people like? Well, I've met such a vast array of people so far. I would say they're no different from anybody anywhere else. The only thing that would be a little bit different is just the Japanese people here are a little bit more shy. Yeah, they're a little bit more shy when it comes to talking. I can compare it to that of an introvert. But that also depends on where you're living. If you're living in a place that's more like a big metropolitan city or something like that, you're gonna run into more Japanese people and foreigners that are a lot more out there and expressive and sociable. But in the quiet rural towns like where I live, people are a little bit more shy. If you really want to talk to someone, you definitely do have to be bold. You have to be on the bold part of the conversation. Otherwise, they're not really gonna say that much to you. Yeah, where I live, a lot of people mind their business. They're also definitely very friendly. Do you need to know Japanese to live in Japan? Yes. Is Japan safe? I would say it's pretty safe, but once again, it depends on where you're living. If you're living in the big city, you're a pretty little thing walking down the street, I'm gonna warn you now, these Japanese people that have learned how to be bold, or other bold foreigners, they're gonna approach you. But if you live in a small town, it's a bit more calm. It's quiet, almost too quiet. When I come home from work at night, I don't feel like I have to look over my shoulder. I feel like I can go places by myself, and wherever I go, people will help me if I ask for help with something. Overall, in my experience, I feel that Japan is pretty safe. There are like some groups on Facebook with people that are already living in Japan that live all over Japan, and I'm pretty sure like if you decide on a place where you want to live, you could join the group, reach out to one of them and be like, hey, what's the temperament of the community here? And I'm pretty sure any of them will be more than happy to answer your question and kind of give you an idea of what to expect. Okay, last question. How do Japanese people treat foreigners? From my experience so far, all my interactions with Japanese people have been very positive, very friendly. A lot of them have also been very awkward just because of the language barrier and me having to pull out Google Translate whenever I want to say a longer statement. They're very patient. A lot of people like to keep to themselves. A lot of people are just astounded that a foreigner is amongst them when they see one, so they're kind of just like. But yeah, so far in my experience, I've been treated by the Japanese community with friendliness and a lot of curiosity. Alright, so that's all the questions that I got for this video. I really hope that they gave you a little bit more insight on what's been going down here in Japan and what to expect if you do plan on moving out here once they unblock the borders and make entry into Japan possible again. One day all this is gonna die down and you'll be able to come here. If you guys have any other kinds of questions that you want to ask about Japan, please leave them in the comments below, and also comment your favorite Pokemon if you like Pokemon. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video, and I really hope to see you in my next one. Bye!